Hello, I'm Jerry Ford. I'm gonna read a story. Y'all ready for a story? Are you guys into this stuff? The Scary States of America by Michael Teitelbaum. If this book sounds interesting to you, buy a copy of it. Support the author. You know, they appreciate that. So I'm gonna read a story out of here. I just started reading this just recently. I read an Oklahoma story last time. Clayton, out of Clayton, Oklahoma. I'm not familiar with that town, but it was an alien. They was thinking they got help from an alien or something. So let's pick another state. So I'm gonna go with one from Colorado. I'm going with places that I either live now or have lived before. Let's see, Colorado is page 29. I want to read all the states, but my due date to return it to the library will be up too soon, so I won't be able to. I'll have to recheck it out. So on Colorado, it says, "Here I am. Please find me." Must be lost, maybe in the mountains or something. Okay. I've gotten to know a few physics. I've gotten to know a few physics who share. Is that right? It doesn't look like psychics. Maybe it is psychics. I'm going to say it's psychics. Maybe my mind isn't used to seeing that word written down or something. I don't know. I've gotten to know a few psychics who share my love of the paranormal. Sure, there are a lot of fakes out there, but there are also a lot of people who have a gift and want to use it for good. One such person is a psychic named Gina MacArthur of Durango, Colorado. Been there. Who is so well known and accepted in her community that the police often use her to help them with impossible to solve crimes. I asked her to email me the case she was proudest to have solved. Here is her story. I work closely with the police, so I can't say I solved this all by myself. Plus, I like to think that the victim is the one who gives us the help. I'm just the vehicle to communicate messages from the other side. 27-year-old Marilyn Tilbit had lived in Durango her entire life. She had worked for a local insurance company and lived in a modest apartment. Then, one day, 5 years ago, Marilyn vanished without a trace. Uh-oh, I feel a sneeze coming on. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Testing. After days of searching, the police still had no clues as to her whereabouts. They did, however, have a suspect. Marilyn's former boyfriend, Stuart Trainer, had a criminal record, including several convictions for assault in the months leading up to her disappearance. Marilyn had made several calls to the police emergency line to report incidents of domestic violence. Marilyn's friends described Trainer as an abusive individual who was prone to outbursts of rage. Finally, 2 weeks before her disappearance, Marilyn broke up with Trainer and got a restraining order preventing him from coming within 100 yards of her. Trainer's friends told the police that he was enraged by the order and had threatened to make Marilyn pay for it. Several eyewitnesses also said that on the day Marilyn disappeared, they had seen Trainer leaving the apartment building where she lived. The police arrested Trainer, but they feared that without Marilyn's body, they wouldn't have enough evidence to prove he was guilty. And so As a last resort, the Durango police chief contacted me. I'm always the police's last resort, but I don't mind. They would be out of a job if they came to me first with every case. I asked them to take me to Marilyn Tilbott's apartment so that I could try to receive psychic signals from the woman by surrounding myself with her possessions. Now, not all police officers are on the psychic bandwagon, and I always hear a lot of sarcastic comments about my abilities. Durango Detective Harvey Otis was definitely a non-believer. I think this is all a load of bull, ma'am, but I've got my orders. Detective Otis said as he held the apartment door open for me. I understand, Detective. It's best not to argue with a non-believer. They change their tune pretty quickly once impossible cases are solved. The apartment was dark and musty, with a depressive air that overwhelmed me. As I walked from room to room, opening drawers and closets and holding Marilyn's clothing, jewelry, books, and trinkets, I had to stop myself from bursting into tears. In all my years of psychic work, I had never felt a victim's pain and hopelessness quite like this. Marilyn, I said to myself, I'm here to help you. You're still afraid and so sad, but that can all go away if you let me help you. Where are you? Help me find you, and you will finally be at peace. I turned the corner into the kitchen, and the sadness and fear disappeared. What happened next is difficult for me to describe. Psychic visions always are. It was as if I were on an emotional roller coaster. I leaned against the doorframe with my eyes closed, and images flashed before me at fantastic speed. 1 second, I felt panicked, then desperate, and then terrified, and the next moment, nothing. It was as if I were dead. I had never experienced that type of feeling, and I hope to God I never feel that way again. I never know how long these psychic states will last, but when I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor surrounded by police. Get an ambulance, I heard one cop shout to another, and some water. Gentlemen, I said as calmly as I could, please help me to the table and get me some paper and a pen as quickly as possible. I'm perfectly all right, no need to worry. After calling off the ambulance, the officer sat me down at the kitchen table and I began to transcribe every roller coaster moment. I scribbled the words road, water, knee, decapitate, and church as quickly as I could. I noticed one of the policemen look at his fellow officer and make the cuckoo sign near his head. I guess that's the sign, isn't it? Detective Otis, I said when I had finished, I have some things that might be of use to the case. The detective took the piece of paper and looked at it for a moment before turning to stare at me. These things don't just arrive as easy prepackaged solutions, I said, getting up from my chair. They come in bits and pieces. Now let me tell you what they mean. I began to recite the following list. When I opened my mouth, I spoke in a voice completely different from my own. I will be found near a main road. I will be lying near an embankment, a creek, and a bridge. A church will have something to do with locating me, as will salt. There are leaves all around me. I am missing my leg. My head is no longer attached to my body. A man with a bad knee will find me, and the first initial S will be involved in some way. Detective Otis wrote down everything I said, but I couldn't help noticing the skeptical look on his face. He thanked me for my time and had an officer drive me home. The police chief later told me that Detective Otis had returned to the station that night and, using every available officer, focused the search on creeks that intersected main roads. He told his officers to search bridge embankments at the points where roads crossed the creeks. He also mentioned the church and the salt, although he wasn't sure what role either would play. He told his officers to look for a body buried under leaves rather than in a grave with freshly dug dirt. The 2 days after my vision, one of Durango's officers was exploring Route 160, which intersects Lightner Creek in a few spots. He had already checked out several bridge embankments along the route with no success. At one spot along the route where a bridge crossed over Lightner Creek, the officer had begun exploring the leaf-covered embankments when he happened to glance across the creek. There, in full view, was a salt storage facility where the highway department stored its salt for use on the roads in winter. Recalling that I, or should I say Marilyn, had said that salt would have something to do with the location of her body, the officer pulled out his checklist. His heart skipped a beat as he reread the list, which included the mention of a church as well. He had thought nothing of it at the time, but about a half-mile up the road he had passed a kids' camp that was run by a local church. Continuing down the list, he nearly fainted when he read the last two items. The officer's name was Stephen Sachs, and he had injured his knee playing basketball the previous weekend. Officer Sachs quickly radioed the others on the search and asked for help exploring the area. Within minutes, 20 officers arrived and a detailed search of the embankment began. As it turned out, Officer Sachs himself found the body, covered with leaves and lying in a shallow grave. Marilyn's left leg was missing, and her head was discovered some 15 yards away from the body. Traces of Stuart Trainor's DNA on the body later confirmed his guilt, and he was eventually convicted of the murder. Marilyn really wanted to be found. She wanted justice, and she wanted to be released from the pain and terror she continued to feel in the spirit world. The incredibly strong psychic signals she had sent were her way of saying, "Here I am. Please find me." Marilyn's spirit could not rest until her body was found, so that her killer could be brought to justice. I don't think it said a year when that happened. I don't remember hearing about it. I was pretty young when I lived in Colorado, so I probably didn't pay attention to a lot of the news going on then about that kind of stuff. But, so there you go. Boy, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, that was a quick story. Yeah, check this book out. If you're into this kind of stuff and you think it'd be cool to have a copy of this, go out and buy it. Support the author. There's all this 50 states are in here. There's a story for each one, so you might really find it interesting. Okay, thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and we will see you on the next one. This was Colorado. Bye.